Join us today as we continue talking about cutting-edge technology being used to kill infected mosquitoes. Hello, friends. Welcome to Advanced Studio Classroom. My name is Steve, and we're on day 2 today of our science feature this month called Frankenfly Mosquitoes. Again, with me in the studio is Linda. Welcome back, Linda.
Thank you, Steve. Thanks for having me.
We are so glad to have Linda here because she has a very, very special perspective on mosquitoes. She hates them very, very much. And she is from Florida, southern Florida. And so she has a very, we all have firsthand knowledge about mosquitoes, right? We all have been bitten in our lifetimes, but
seems like she has a unique ability.
Linda has probably more so, this special ability to attract mosquitoes and be bitten more than other people.
Yeah, it's an ability that I wish I didn't have.
It's too bad, like you were never bitten by this radioactive mosquito.
Oh.
You know, then you could be like, have superpowers and stuff.
Mosquito woman.
Yeah, mosquito woman.
And this is not an exaggeration. I was standing next to Linda when we were filming, and they just flocked towards her.
Yeah, there's something about her blood being sweet. I'm sure there's something different.
Or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I should do some research on that so I can, prevent mosquitoes from biting me.
You know, they say that some of it might be related to your diet. People who have a meat-rich diet, that smell comes off of your body, though we can't detect it, but mosquitoes can. So maybe it's something that you eat
She's a carnivore.
That's special. Do you have any special?
I don't think so. I don't think I have any.
Like mac and cheese or
something that's just so attractive to mosquitoes.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, welcome back, Linda, anyway.
Thank you.
And Albert is with us again, too. Hi, Albert.
Hi, Steve, Linda, everyone. Good to be back. I'm looking forward to continuing and wrapping this up.
Yes. Now, before we move into today's lesson, let's talk about Zika a little bit. Zika is the virus that we are concerned with. And so let's talk about this a little bit more and help our listeners understand what we're talking about. Linda?
Yes. So Zika, we read yesterday that it's mainly, the main outbreaks are in Latin America, in particular Brazil. And so some of the consequences of contracting this virus includes defects, birth defects.
Right.
That's the biggest consequence. And so it's important to be able to protect yourself against getting this virus, but more importantly, getting bitten by the mosquito that carries this virus.
Okay, so what are some ways we can protect ourselves?
Well, one thing is to use insect repellent. And insect repellent is usually in the form of a spray that you can spray on your skin so that it keeps the bugs from biting you. But maybe you don't want to use something because usually insect repellents are not natural. They have chemicals in them. So it's best to wear long sleeves and wear long pants, be covered up.
Okay.
And that's one reason why when I go outdoors, I always am covered up. Yeah.
Oh.
Is to prevent the bugs. Not because I'm afraid of the sun.
Now I know.
Just to prevent the bugs from biting me.
Okay. Some of the symptoms include red eyes, fever, headache, muscle pain, rash, and joint pain. And so if you ever travel to Central America or South America and you have these symptoms, get it checked out. It could be Zika. Now, about 1 in 5 people infected with Zika virus become ill. So if you're experiencing these symptoms, please go see a doctor immediately. Albert, what do you want to share with us today?
Oh, just one point to highlight from yesterday's show is how, like Lena talked about ways we can be on the defense personally, and other possible ways that the government, and cities and countries are approaching this is they're using a technique called fogging. And what fogging is they will disperse or spray an area with basically more or less poison. And it's like indiscriminate, widespread, and it would not only affect mosquitoes, but possibly other things in the environment, including humans. So in the beginning of the show, you were saying now there's a new cutting edge technique and an approach. And what it is, I feel like they're using genetically modified Frankenfly mosquitoes. And it seems more surgical, but we don't know the ramifications or possible negative side effects.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, you mentioned fogging, and I think where we live, there are those things that we plug in. The liquid heats up and it keeps the mosquitoes away while you're sleeping. Linda, you have one of those in your apartment?
Yes, I definitely do.
Yeah.
I use it during the summer or even during the winter because there seems to be no time when there aren't mosquitoes.
Yeah. In a sense, that's kind of like fogging. It's putting out this vapor, these really small particles. And
I really like that imagery.
I wonder if that is unhealthy for humans. I'm sure it's been tested, right?
It is,
but it's in such small amounts.
Yeah, I mean, all of these, repellents or things to keep mosquitoes away, they all have some type of chemical which is not healthy for us.
Right. So we don't want to be breathing that in all the time.
Right.
Right. Okay. Well, friends, let's open our magazines now to page 34, and let's pick up today's lesson at the top, entitled An Old Theme with a New Twist.
An old theme with a new twist. In 1953, a Texas entomologist who helped the U.S. Army develop DDT came up with the idea of sterilizing male screwworm flies with an X-ray machine. Tests conducted around the U.S. showed huge successes. What Oxitec is doing, said Matthew DeGenero, who runs Florida International University's Mosquito Genetics and Behavior Lab, is a 21st century version of that. Because mosquitoes can't tolerate radiation, Oxitec genetically engineered male mosquitoes which don't bite to be sterile and have a kill switch. You're not really introducing the gene into the environment because things are dying, DeGenero said. Oxitec has already released about 135 million mosquitoes in different countries. CEO Hayden Perry said, and seen wild populations of Aedes aegypti decline between 80 and 90%.
All right, this problem with mosquitoes and mosquitoes carrying diseases is nothing new. We've experienced and gone through this kind of thing many, many times over the course of human history. Our author takes us to 1953 when a Texas entomologist was developing DDT to combat mosquitoes. So, again, this is nothing new. We're just talking about new ways to combat mosquitoes. Yes, Albert?
Oh, and I'm so glad that, the author brought up DDT because I feel like this brings it all into perspective why the Frankenfly is in limbo, why there's so much contention or divisive amongst people who support it or don't support it. Because, I don't know, as you may know or may not know, DDT is a poison that was released, and one of the side effects that no one foresaw or was able to see, it affected birds, namely like the American bald eagle and other animals, because what happened was the poison got released, it got made its way into the rivers and waters, and smaller fish would absorb it, and then bigger fish would eat it, and it would concentrate up, and then the eagles would eat it, and then their offspring would be affected.
That's right.
They had lower birth rates.
That's right. It was very, very useful. I mean, used a lot, I think, in the 50s and 60s.
Right.
And
it was like the wonder bread of everything.
Then it got outlawed, I think, in the 70s, right? Finally, people began saying, hey, this is a problem we didn't foresee. Maybe it's getting into the insects and the birds are eating the insects and getting...
Right.
So this is something, an unforeseen consequence. And this is probably why the Florida government and the U.S. Food and Drug Administration are still thinking this over about the frankenfly. They're thinking, well, maybe in 20 years something might come up that we haven't foreseen. We got to see and study this very, very carefully.
Right. I mean, it sounds like a very neat solution to a really problematic situation that's breaking out. But you really can't account for everything.
Right, right. Let's talk about entomologists really quickly, Linda. What is this big word describing?
This refers to a scientist who studies insects.
Okay, and that might be a job for you. If you like insects, anybody out there? If you really love studying insects, then you are an entomologist. And so tell us more about this entomologist, Linda.
Okay. Well, he helped the U.S. Army to develop DDT. And, that would be helpful because you have soldiers fighting in the jungles or in places that there are a lot of mosquitoes that can pass diseases to the soldiers. And so he came up with this idea of sterilizing male flies with an X-ray machine.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then tests conducted around the U.S. showed huge successes. And when you sterilize something, you make them unable to produce offspring, or they're now unable to reproduce. And that's perfect. You don't want mosquitoes to reproduce, especially the ones that are carrying the virus.
Oh, no, that's a really good definition. I mean, usually when I hear the word sterilize, I think of like making something clean, like lab or medical or surgery equipment.
Sure. Now, what Oxitec is doing, remember that British company that's helping out in Florida? They are saying, hey, we're doing the same thing, but in a different way. We're sterilizing mosquitoes, and we're taking the males and making them so that they breed non-viable offspring. All right. Albert, take us into the next paragraph, please.
So they are using, drumroll please, radiation to genetically modify these mosquitoes. Now, there are many forms of radiation. The two big ones are long form and short form. The long form has ionizing properties. That's the one we have to be afraid of. So say like your microwave at home, that has shortwave or non-ionizing. It won't be able to affect your DNA or your molecules or cells. So, stand in front of that microwave. Don't be afraid of it.
No way, I'm not doing that.
But
still not going to put my face in front of it.
They're using ionizing radiation. And when you ionize something, basically you're able to take away or add electrons to an atom. And this way, DNA is very sensitive to such things, and you're able to modify and change it for worse or better.
Okay, so once again, this company, Oxitec, is genetically modifying male mosquitoes, making them sterile, and then sending them out into the world to mate with the females, and then the offspring are going to just die off because they have the kill switch in them. Now we're on line 16. Let's move on and talk about Oxitec a little more. Linda, help us with this paragraph.
So Oxitec has already released about 135 million mosquitoes in different countries, and they've seen a decline in this mosquito that transmits the Zika virus between 80 and 90%.
Wow.
So
that's great, right?
Yeah, that is pretty significant.
Sounds very effective. Very good, very good. So it does seem to be working. However, there are some people who are still skeptical and thinking we got to wait a little longer and study this some more. All right, let's take a break and go to the top of the right-hand column for our second reading today, Frankenstein, Foe, Friend, or Ally?
Frankenstein, foe, friend, or ally? But the approach based on a high-tech version of a decades-old method was met with bitter opposition from residents who feared technology gone wild. When I first heard about it, I thought it was the most advanced idea ever. Mosquito fighting mosquito, said Key West real estate agent Myle DeMar, an anti-Frankenfly protester. She said she has worries the mosquitoes could cause unintended consequences, and while they reduce mosquito populations, no studies link them to a reduction in disease. I think the technology can work, but it has to be proven it's effective, she said. But conducting such trials, which would require thousands of participants, would be costly and time-consuming, FIU's DeGenero said. And circumstantial evidence already exists. Researchers know when there are fewer Aedes aegypti buzzing around, disease drops. He also argues that spraying is more damaging to the environment. When we spray, we're killing everything, and that's more upsetting to the food chain, he said.
All right, friends, welcome back. We are on page 34. If you're just joining us, we're talking about ways we can defeat the Zika virus outbreak, which has been in the news the last year, especially in Latin America and South America, causing a lot of problems with people's health. And now we're talking about Frankenstein. And he comes into the picture because scientists are creating Frankenflies. And so let's talk about Frankenstein for a moment. This is a book that came out, I think, in the late 1800s sometime. And it's about a monster. We won't give away too much, but the monster does harm some people. And that's where this word Frankenfly comes from. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about the Frankenstein person, Albert?
Not particularly. All I know is it's based on a Gothic novel by Mary Wollstonecraft Shelley.
Mary Shelley, sure.
Yeah, really good name, by the way. And the doctor, as you mentioned, creates a monster from corpses, parts of corpses.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, we don't know if this Frankenfly that's been created, is it a foe, friend, or ally?
Right.
You know, is it gonna help us out? Is it gonna end up coming around and bite us in the behind?
Oh, nice. So to speak.
Yeah, so to speak.
Yeah, or will it be like DDT, right?
Yeah.
Everyone thought DDT was great for many years.
They thought it was a silver bullet.
Yeah, this solves our problems. But then 20 years later, it was banned. It was outlawed. So will this Frankenfly be the same? Okay. Okay, Linda, take us into this next paragraph, please.
Okay, so the new approach that they have with the this technology, it's high tech, but it's a high tech version of a decades old method, and it's been met with bitter opposition from people who fear technology has gone wild.
I think we can all think of movies that are based on this premise where technology has gone wild, right?
Yes.
I think of RoboCop as one from the 1980s. Remember that one? Like, all kinds of things just go berserk. Even Space Odyssey, right? The computers are turning on the people. And
Right.
This is such a huge theme in life, in movies.
Did RoboCop go renegade?
No, but there was another robotic cop that did. And so RoboCop's job was to rein that other one in.
And I also remember RoboCop was able to be like brainwashed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
there's a lot
again,
of fear about technology.
Right. When I first heard about it, I thought it was the most advanced idea ever. And so this is someone who lives in Florida saying this. Maybe she was into it or behind this, supporting it. Mosquito fighting was something she was interested in. And then she said she had worries that the mosquito could cause unintended consequences. And so she's thinking twice about it.
Yeah, so we don't know, we mentioned earlier what the consequences might be, and they might have very negative consequences, just like DDT did.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Albert, what's next?
She feels like the technology can work, but it has to be proven effective. It needs more time, I feel like. That's why this whole thing is in limbo. It needs more time. People need to figure out the details. And so they're conducting trials. or they want to, but it would require thousands of participants. And I feel like when this thing goes south, what I mean is when this thing goes bad, it's really going to be really hard to find these new genetically modified mosquitoes, which instead of calling them frankenflies, we can call them superflies then after a while.
Yeah. Okay, well, these trials are going to cost money. They will require thousands of participants. They're going to have to ask just thousands of mosquitoes to participate.
Sign up here.
And people. And it would be costly and time-consuming. But it's important that they make sure it's done right. If it goes awry, or as you said, if it goes south, they're going to have to think about how to rein it in.
Steve, I'm curious, and Linda, like, do you guys feel like this is a good plan, a good course to go with?
I think it's worth considering and worth looking into more. I don't know. I'm not really a biologist by any means, and I don't know the ramifications of what would happen if this thing got loose.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, I did study biology, but I'm not a biologist. But I believe if they do, they need to do more trials. They need more solid evidence and not just circumstantial evidence to put this program into action, because there are a lot of concerns and residents and people living in these areas will be affected.
I'm kind of surprised to hear you say that, Linda, being such an anti-mosquito person. I thought you would be the one who would be like, yeah, let's do it.
Like, throw everything at them.
Yeah.
The kitchen sink.
Who cares what will happen as long as we kill mosquitoes?
Yeah, I feel that way when it comes to myself individually.
Ooh.
Like, I will use any type of repellent. Actually, I like the repellent that has the highest amount of DEET, which is, the chemical that is the most effective chemical in the repellent.
By the way, I just want to remind the audience that when using DEET, you shouldn't apply to your skin. It's kind of harmful. So it's it shows how drastic Linda, the lengths that she's willing to go.
Yeah, just to not get bitten by mosquitoes. One, because I hate being bitten, and two, they also carry diseases. And actually, when I lived in Africa, I had to be very conscious of mosquitoes. And so I would sleep under a mosquito net every night. And that's a natural, that's a non-invasive prevention against mosquitoes. But I wanted to get the repellent with the highest amount of DEET. I didn't care. And I also took malaria pills, which, there might be some
side effects.
Health issues further on down the line, but I didn't care. I was like, I don't care. I'll take whatever. So when it comes to myself, I'll go to the extreme. But talking about society as a whole, this affects the entire environment and a lot of people, so we have to be more careful.
Right. Good point. And this takes us into our next sentence. He says that spraying is more damaging to the environment. So when you're talking about neighborhoods and places, communities where people live and children are running around, you probably don't want to fog or spray poisons too often. It damages not just the environment, but people's health as well. There's going to be some kind of a reaction to that. And so he says when we spray, we're killing everything, and that's much more upsetting to the food chain. We talked about this with DDT earlier, Albert.
Right. So, it seems like we come full circle. We're like, oh, hey, there's this new technique, but wait, there's potential problems. Let's go and default back to the old world technique of fogging, which is recommended by the WHO organization. But at the same time, there's potential problems with this as well. I think, if anything, for me at least, the takeaway is like, hey, we're really... as humans, we're able to come up with really clever, ingenious ways of approaching and solving a problem. I hope they don't stop researching alternatives. Maybe something in the middle. Maybe something different.
Yes, we are clever at creating solutions, but we're also clever as humans at creating lots of problems. And so we want to be sure that this solution doesn't turn into a problem down the road.
Exactly.
Yeah. Let's talk about food chain really quickly. This is a fun little phrase, the food chain.
Is it a bunch of food taped onto a chain or rope?
Yes. And the food, we are at the top, right?
Yes.
Humans are at the top of the food chain. And it's when one thing consumes or eats another thing. Something as simple as maybe grass. There's grass at the bottom of the food chain. Then maybe a cow will eat the grass, and then we eat the cow. Okay, there's a few steps there. There could be many more steps in the food chain. I think in marine life, right? The little fish eats the bigger fish, and that fish gets eaten by a bigger fish, and then the shark eats that fish, and so forth. That's the food chain that we're talking about here. Okay, friends, we are out of time, but we had a great time talking about Frankenfly mosquitoes. We're so glad you've joined us for this science article. Again, there were a lot of big words, we confess, so if you have time, go back and review those. We hope your English is improving. We thank you again. We know you have a lot of choices in how you get your English instruction, and we thank you for joining us at Advanced. So until the next time, we hope all of you have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.